Silence has a strange way of changing the balance of power. Most people spend their lives believing that the strongest voice always belongs to the person who talks the most, argues the hardest, or demands the most attention. But psychology reveals a very different truth. The people who quietly observe, who stay calm under pressure, and who refuse to react to every word often hold a kind of influence that others never notice until it is too late. Their strength is almost invisible. It cannot be measured by how loudly they speak or how many people listen to them. Instead, it grows through patience, emotional control, and the ability to understand what others miss. Among all personality types, empaths who master the art of social silence possess one of the rarest forms of this hidden power. Their silence is not empty. It is filled with awareness. It is filled with understanding. And it often changes the way people behave around them without a single word being spoken. Many empaths were not always silent. In fact, most began their journey doing exactly the opposite. They explained themselves whenever someone misunderstood them. They tried to fix every conflict before it became too painful. They believed honesty would solve every disagreement. They gave people endless chances because they assumed everyone valued kindness the same way they did. When someone judged them unfairly, they defended themselves. When someone became distant, they searched for answers. When someone acted hurtful, they looked for reasons instead of protecting themselves. Over time, this constant emotional effort became exhausting. They discovered a painful lesson that many people never fully understand. Not everyone is searching for truth. Not everyone wants peace. Some people simply want attention. Others want control. Some enjoy emotional reactions because reactions give them a sense of influence. That realization quietly changes an empath forever. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing silence means weakness. They assume that a quiet person has nothing important to say. They mistake calmness for fear. They confuse patience with insecurity. But those assumptions often hide the real story. A silent empath may notice details that everyone else ignores. They hear changes in someone's voice before anyone else notices. They recognize hidden tension behind a smile. They sense discomfort that never appears in words. While everyone else is busy speaking, they are collecting information. While others rush to judge, they are quietly understanding the full picture. This ability gives them a unique advantage in relationships, friendships, workplaces, and even everyday conversations. Their greatest strength often comes from what they choose not to say. Social silence does not mean avoiding people. It does not mean becoming cold or distant. It is not shyness. It is not fear of speaking. It is the ability to choose words carefully instead of using them carelessly. It is knowing when a conversation deserves your energy and when it does not. It is understanding that not every opinion requires a response. Not every accusation deserves a defense. Not every misunderstanding needs to become a battle. This kind of silence is intentional. It is built on emotional maturity rather than emotional avoidance. It allows an empath to stay connected with people without becoming trapped by every emotional storm around them. The psychologists have spent years studying silence, and many of their findings challenge common beliefs. Silence is not simply the absence of communication. It can become one of the strongest forms of communication itself. It creates space for reflection. It helps people regulate emotions before responding. It encourages deeper observation. It reduces impulsive reactions that often damage relationships. In many situations, silence reveals more about another person's character than hours of conversation ever could. When people are given enough space, they often expose their own intentions without realizing it. Their words become more honest. Their emotions become easier to read. Their true priorities slowly appear. The silent empath understands this process naturally, even before learning the psychology behind it. Throughout this video, you will discover why mastering social silence transforms the life of an empath in ways that most people never expect. You will learn why speaking less often leads to seeing more. You will understand how silence protects emotional energy instead of draining it. You will discover why manipulative people become uncomfortable around someone who refuses to react emotionally. You will learn how quiet observation reveals hidden motives that constant conversation often covers. You will also discover why the strongest boundaries are sometimes built without arguments, without anger, and without long explanations. By the end of this journey, you may begin looking at silence in a completely different way. Instead of seeing it as empty space, you will begin seeing it as one of the greatest tools for emotional intelligence, self-respect, and inner peace. There is another reason to stay with this video until the very end. The final lesson brings together everything you are about to learn into one powerful truth that many empaths discover only after years of emotional pain. It explains why silence is not about pushing people away. It is about finally understanding who deserves access to your time, your energy, and your heart. This single realization has changed countless relationships because it shifts the focus from trying to control other people to protecting your own peace. Once that shift happens, life begins to feel lighter. Decisions become clearer. Relationships become healthier. Emotional exhaustion slowly starts to disappear. Many people spend years searching for confidence in the wrong places. They believe confidence comes from saying the perfect words or winning every argument. But true confidence often appears in the moments when there is no need to prove anything at all. It is found in remaining calm when others expect anger. It is found in listening while everyone else rushes to speak. It is found in walking away from unnecessary conflict without carrying bitterness. Silent empaths eventually realize that protecting their peace is more valuable than winning someone else's approval. That realization becomes one of the greatest turning points of their entire lives. As this video unfolds, you may recognize behaviors you have experienced yourself or noticed in someone close to you. Some of these hidden patterns are rarely discussed because they happen quietly, beneath the surface of everyday conversations. Yet they shape relationships more than most people realize. The invisible power of social silence is not about becoming mysterious for attention. It is about becoming emotionally free. It is about choosing wisdom over impulse, observation over assumption, and peace over unnecessary conflict. Welcome to our channel, where we explore the hidden psychology of empathy, emotional intelligence, human behavior, and personal growth in ways that help you understand yourself and the people around you on a much deeper level. If you enjoy thoughtful content that combines psychology with practical life lessons, make sure to subscribe and join our growing community. Turn on notifications so you never miss a new video, because every lesson we share is designed to help you become stronger, wiser, and more emotionally aware. Now, let's begin uncovering the invisible power of empaths who master the art of social silence. Many empaths begin life believing that honesty can solve almost every problem. They grow up thinking that if they simply explain themselves clearly enough, people will understand their intentions. If someone becomes upset, they apologize, even when they are not fully responsible. If someone misunderstands them, they patiently explain again. If conflict appears, they search for a peaceful solution instead of trying to win. This approach comes from kindness, not weakness. Empaths naturally believe that people want harmony because that is what they want themselves. They assume others value honesty, compassion, and understanding in the same way they do. For years, this belief shapes the way they interact with the world. They spend enormous amounts of emotional energy trying to repair relationships, clear up confusion, and prevent anyone from feeling hurt. They often carry conversations long after everyone else has emotionally left them. They replay arguments in their minds, wondering what they could have said differently. They question themselves instead of questioning the behavior of those who repeatedly hurt them. This pattern slowly becomes exhausting because it places all the responsibility for peace on the empath, while allowing others to avoid taking responsibility for their own actions. As time passes, a difficult truth begins to appear. Not everyone is searching for understanding. Some people are searching for control. Others enjoy creating confusion because confusion gives them power. There are individuals who ask questions not because they want answers, but because they want to keep someone emotionally engaged. They criticize, accuse, interrupt, and challenge, simply to provoke a reaction. The empath eventually notices that no matter how carefully they explain themselves, the conflict never truly ends. Every answer creates another question. Every apology becomes an invitation for another accusation. Every attempt to make peace somehow leads to another emotional battle. That is when a quiet realization begins to form. The problem was never a lack of explanation. The problem was that the other person was never interested in understanding. They were interested in keeping the conversation alive because the conversation itself gave them emotional influence. This discovery changes everything. It becomes the first real lesson in the art of social silence. The empath learns that not every conversation deserves an answer. Not every opinion deserves attention. Not every misunderstanding deserves correction. Some situations become healthier the moment they are no longer fed with endless words. Once this lesson is learned, the empath begins responding differently. Instead of rushing to explain, they pause. Instead of defending every accusation, they observe. Instead of apologizing automatically, they ask themselves whether they truly did something wrong. This small change produces surprising results. People who genuinely care about understanding become more respectful because they appreciate thoughtful communication. People who only wanted emotional reactions become frustrated because they are no longer receiving the response they expected. Silence begins separating healthy relationships from unhealthy ones without the empath forcing anything to happen. Those with honest intentions remain patient. Those driven by manipulation often become louder because silence removes the control they once enjoyed. The empath realizes they no longer need to expose dishonest people. Time and patience allow those people to expose themselves. Human psychology has long shown that people reveal more about themselves than they intend when they feel comfortable speaking without interruption. Most individuals naturally fill silence because silence makes them slightly uncomfortable. They continue talking, adding more details, expressing stronger opinions, and revealing emotions they originally planned to hide. The silent empath notices this pattern again and again. Someone who appears confident slowly reveals deep insecurity through repeated comparisons with others. Someone who claims complete honesty eventually contradicts their own story. Someone who constantly speaks about loyalty quietly demonstrates jealousy through small comments that seem harmless at first. A manipulative personality often exposes itself by repeatedly shifting blame away from personal responsibility. None of these discoveries require confrontation. They simply require observation. The empath no longer feels the need to investigate every situation, because people reveal themselves naturally when given enough time and enough space. Their tone changes, their facial expressions shift, their stories become inconsistent, their emotional reactions become predictable. Silence creates an opportunity for truth to surface without pressure. This changes the empath's focus completely. Instead of preparing the perfect response while someone else is speaking, they begin listening with genuine attention. They notice pauses that carry hidden meaning. They notice words that do not match body language. They recognize when someone's smile appears forced, or when excitement sounds rehearsed. Small details that most people overlook suddenly become clear. A person may repeatedly promise support, while their actions consistently create disappointment. Another may speak kindly in public, but show resentment in private. The empath begins recognizing emotional patterns instead of isolated moments. This deeper awareness makes explanation less important than observation. They understand that actions repeated over time always reveal more than carefully chosen words spoken in a single conversation. At the same time, another transformation quietly begins. Difficult personalities often depend on emotional reactions to maintain influence. Some thrive on arguments because conflict keeps attention focused on them. Others provoke guilt because guilt makes people easier to control. Some constantly criticize because they enjoy watching others defend themselves. Emotional reactions become the fuel that keeps these unhealthy dynamics alive. Every angry reply, every desperate explanation, every attempt to prove innocence gives the cycle fresh energy. The silent empath slowly removes this fuel. They stop arguing over every accusation. They stop trying to convince people determined not to believe them. They stop defending their character before those committed to misunderstanding it. Without emotional resistance, manipulative behavior often loses its power. The conversation becomes shorter. The conflict becomes weaker. Sometimes the difficult person simply walks away because they no longer receive the emotional reward they were seeking. This is not punishment. It is not revenge. It is emotional discipline. The empath has learned that peace is sometimes protected not by saying more, but by refusing to participate in unnecessary conflict. As silence becomes a habit rather than a temporary response, something remarkable happens inside the empath. Their own mind becomes quieter. Constant mental rehearsals begin fading away. They spend less time wondering how others might judge them, and more time understanding what they themselves truly feel. This inner quiet strengthens emotional intelligence. Instead of reacting automatically, they respond intentionally. They notice subtle changes in tone that suggest hidden frustration. They recognize body language that reveals discomfort despite confident words. They identify emotional inconsistencies that once confused them. They become sensitive to patterns rather than isolated events. One broken promise may be forgiven, but repeated broken promises become impossible to ignore. One careless comment may be accidental, but repeated disrespect forms a pattern. The empath no longer becomes distracted by isolated explanations because they have learned to trust consistent behavior above temporary words. Intentional silence creates room for reflection, and reflection creates insight. The quieter the internal noise becomes, the clearer other people appear. This new awareness also protects something. Empaths have often sacrificed throughout their lives: emotional energy. Empaths naturally absorb the emotional atmosphere around them. They feel tension even when nobody speaks about it. They notice sadness hidden behind polite conversations. They often leave crowded environments feeling emotionally exhausted, without fully understanding why. Endless conversations, constant problem solving, and carrying the emotional weight of other people slowly drain their inner resources. Before mastering silence, many empaths believe they must always be available. They answer every message immediately. They attend every gathering out of obligation. They listen to every complaint, even when their own emotional reserves are nearly empty. Eventually, they realize that kindness without boundaries becomes self-neglect. Silence becomes one of the healthiest boundaries they ever develop. They no longer respond to every opinion demanding attention. They no longer accept every invitation simply to avoid disappointing someone. They begin protecting their peace instead of constantly protecting relationships that survive only because of their endless emotional effort. This simple shift reduces emotional exhaustion and allows genuine compassion to return naturally instead of feeling forced or depleted. Eventually, something surprising begins happening in the relationships around them. People notice the difference even if nobody can fully explain it. The empath no longer over-explains every decision. They stop chasing people who continuously pull away. They stop proving their worth to those determined not to see it. They stop reacting instantly to criticism or emotional pressure. This unexpected calm changes the balance of every interaction. Some people become curious because they can no longer predict the empath's behavior. Others become uncomfortable because their usual methods no longer produce the same emotional responses. Those who genuinely respect healthy boundaries begin showing even greater respect because they recognize quiet confidence. Those who depended on emotional control often lose interest because control becomes impossible without constant reactions. Silence creates a quiet mystery. Human nature often places greater value on what cannot be easily controlled or completely understood. True confidence rarely announces itself. It simply exists, and people sense it without needing an explanation. Still, mastering silence requires wisdom rather than stubbornness. Healthy silence is never about hiding feelings forever, or pretending emotions do not exist. It is intentional. It creates peace instead of confusion. It protects dignity instead of avoiding responsibility. There is an important difference between choosing silence because a conversation has no value and remaining silent because fear prevents honest communication. Unhealthy silence grows from resentment, shame, or emotional suppression. Healthy silence grows from clarity, patience, and self-respect. The empath learns that wisdom is not measured by speaking less in every situation. It is measured by knowing exactly when words create healing and when silence creates greater understanding. That balance becomes one of the greatest signs of emotional maturity, opening the door to an even deeper transformation that few people ever recognize until they experience it themselves. The greatest lesson is surprisingly simple. An empath's true strength is not measured by how well they argue, how clearly they explain themselves, or how many people finally understand their heart. Their real power appears when they recognize that not every person is meant to understand them. Some conversations bring clarity, while others only create confusion. Some people listen with an open mind, while others listen only to prepare their next argument. Learning the difference changes everything. Silence is never about becoming cold, distant, or uncaring. In fact, it is often the opposite. It is choosing peace over unnecessary conflict. It is protecting your emotional energy so you can continue giving your kindness to the people who truly value it. It is having enough confidence to let your actions speak when words no longer make a difference. Every moment of intentional silence says something powerful. It says that your self-respect matters. It says that your peace is worth protecting. It says that your value does not depend on convincing everyone to see your worth. The strongest empaths are not the loudest people in the room. They are the ones who know when to speak with honesty and when silence carries greater wisdom. They understand that every conversation deserves kindness, but not every conversation deserves their energy. They stop chasing approval. They stop explaining themselves to people committed to misunderstanding them. Instead, they invest their time in relationships built on trust, respect, and genuine understanding. Grastering social silence does not mean losing your voice. It means discovering where your voice has the greatest impact. It means realizing that your words become more meaningful when they are spoken with purpose instead of pressure. Sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is the one you never have to say. And often, the people who truly belong in your life will understand your silence just as deeply as they understand your words. If this message spoke to you, let it be a reminder that your peace is not something you have to earn. It is something you have the right to protect. The quiet strength you have been developing may be far more powerful than you ever realized, and it may already be changing your life in ways you cannot yet see. Before you go, take a moment to share your experience in the comments. What is one moment when staying silent protected your peace? Your story could encourage someone else who is still learning this important lesson. If you enjoyed this video and want to discover more powerful insights about empaths, psychology, emotional intelligence, and personal growth, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message today. Your support helps us create more content that inspires, educates, and empowers people around the world. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.